then I'll just give you a sort of an outline as to what I'm going to do. So, the first thing is to figure out, what is stress. So I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what stress does to the body. And then I'm going to tie that in with how your body tends to malfunction when you're under prolonged stress. And whilst I'm not really going to talk about the stress itself, the thing that causes your body to go into this state, because that could be physical, chemical, or emotional, I'm going to talk more about how the body responds to that. So the solution is actually to deal with the stress in the first place. Does that make sense? Because if we don't deal with the stress, but I'm not dealing with that stress today, I'm just dealing with how your body's going to respond to the stress, because everybody's got different types of stress. So that's the sort of the idea. And what a lot of people don't understand is that, like wild animals on the Masai Mara, we are supposed to move. Maybe not exactly like the wild animals on the Masai Mara, but we are supposed to move. And sitting or not moving is actually a stress. Think about, this is what, so let me see, that's 2 minutes gone. It's going to seem funny now to Wallace and Daisy hearing all of this again. I could do this for a week. I could be here for a week doing this. Anyway.
You could indeed. I know how much knowledge you have.
Oh, no, I don't mean it like that. I'm not, sorry, I don't mean it to show, I'm not trying to show off. I'm just saying that there's a lot to talk about if you want to really get into the nuts and bolts of it, I mean, do most people where you work, do they mostly sit?
It's a bit of a variation. So all the people that are currently on the call now, yes, they sit for long periods of day. And especially now where everyone who's signed in is either working from home or furloughed. So yes, sitting is probably taking up quite a lot of their days.
Okay. All right. So that's grand. And then like if there's anybody else who jumps on the call and they don't sit, what would they be doing?
Probably, so we've got like production and technical, we've got someone like my job, I'm quite manual, like moving and carrying boxes and stuff like that. So
okay.
All right. I'm just gonna stop you for 2 seconds. So everyone else who's just joined on, this is Connell. If you have any questions that you want to ask Connell while he's talking, you can put it in the chat box and I'll have a little look throughout the session. And then we're going to do a Q&A at the end as well, so feel free, or if you've got any questions throughout, then feel free to unmute and ask Connell. I'm sure he'll answer them.
Absolutely.
But so it's 3 minutes past, shall we just make a start and then
we'll carry on now, because otherwise that's fine. So
cool.
First of all, thank you so much, Ruth, for inviting me to spend a bit of time with you and your colleagues. It's wonderful to be given this opportunity. And like I said, this is going to be a slightly different slant on the whole, how stress affects the human physiology, or how it affects the body primarily. So the real nice sort of phrase there is motion is lotion. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So what is stress? Well, that Merriam-Webster is a medical dictionary. So it's a physical or chemical or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension and may be a factor in disease causation. So they're really sitting on the fence, aren't they? It may cause, or it may be a factor in disease causation. But if you ask anybody like who's had a heart attack or who's had a major sort of a life event, a lot of them will say, well, I was very stressed. I had an old uncle who, had a major stroke and completely paralyzed. And, he didn't smoke, he didn't drink, but he just had a very stressful life. So people tend to understand that stress is a negative thing for the body or for how physiology works. Would you agree with that? That's not really too far out there, right? So if we look a little bit more closely at stress, and we're going to specifically talk about the short-term fight or flight type of stress. So I'm not saying that there are saber-toothed tigers wandering the sort of hallways and corridors of the Royal Albert Hall. I'm not saying that. But we've all been in a situation where suddenly we have to get into a fight or runaway type of a situation. Would that be fair? And these are survival mechanisms that we've developed over the millennia. You know, like when you think about the Lynx ads, you know, the very sexist Lynx ads that used to be on TV, they sort of not very complimentary at all to any of the sexes, primarily apart from the guy who was using the Lynx. That's not the way that life was. You know, life was about bats and weapons and tribes and evading threats and fighting. So we've developed these mechanisms within our own physiology. And what happens when somebody attacks you or you get into that state of fight or flight is that there's an increase in your blood pressure. Now, this is a very brief description of what happens. There's a lot more biochemistry to this, but this will give you the general gist of what happens. So there's an increase in your blood pressure and an increase in the cholesterol. So the blood pressure goes up in order to give your muscles and joints the extra oxygenation to either run away or fight with the tiger or whatever it is that we're fighting with, right? The cholesterol levels go up, surprisingly, for wounds. So in anticipation of developing a wound, so when the animal or the person bites you or you cut yourself, cholesterol helps with the clotting process. Does that make sense? There's also an increase in blood flow to the heart, lungs, and the muscles. You just need those systems. You know, you need to be able to breathe faster to get more oxygen into your system. Your heart needs to be able to pump more blood to your muscles and joints, and your muscles need more blood in order to be able to run away or fight with the individual or the threat that's imminent. And at the same time, there's a decrease in the blood flow to the gut. And there's a decrease in the blood flow to the reproductive system. So despite what you might think on the Lynx ads, when you're running away from something or when you're fighting with somebody, it's not the time to make love. It's not the time to have a family. It's not the time to digest your whatever you've just eaten, right? All of that blood has to come from somewhere in order to be able to supply the structures that are required for evading or fighting that particular threat. And there's also an increase in tension. When you're under more tension, not only are you more focused on running away or fighting with whatever it is that you got to fight with, but your whole structure is in a state of protection. So, you know, you go from something like this to something like this. Does that make sense? Great. This is going to be easy. So then that was short-term stress. And there's a part of the brain at the front, it's the new part of the brain, it's called the neocortex. That front part of the brain tells us, no, everything's okay. I'm not stressed. I can handle this. So it might be if you're buying a house or if you're going through a divorce or if you're having financial issues or if you're not moving the way that human beings are designed to move, right? The front of your brain says, don't worry about it. I can handle this. And the back part of the brain, the older part of the brain, it continues to initiate all of those stressful situations and activities that I've just described. So we're sitting there in front of the computer thinking, yeah, I can handle this, everything's okay. Meanwhile, our blood pressure and our cholesterol are slowly going up. And of course, you're not going to develop heart disease, you know, after being exposed to stress for a day or two. This is like years of being exposed to stress. Does that make sense? You got an increased blood flow to the heart, lungs, and the muscles. So your brain is actually deprived of some of that blood, as is your immunity. You've got a decreased blood flow to your gut. Remember, you don't want to be digesting your food, or you don't want to be starting a family when you're in a state of stress. So that might help you understand why there's so many people complaining of gut disorders and fertility issues. And then there's constant increased tension. So constantly, it's this. And sadly, that just leads to spinal restrictions. We have a fancy word for that, but we call it nerve interference. Okay? Everybody happy with that slide? I just threw in the immune system because we're going through this wonderful, stressful period at the moment. Unusual. I don't like the word unprecedented because I think everybody's just jumping on that bandwagon. But, you know, the whole COVID-19 coronavirus, I mean, I went to pick up a Chinese takeaway last Friday, and it was as if there had been a chemical spill in the Chinese takeaway. You know, and that's bound to affect people. For me, it's okay because I can understand that, you know, what we're dealing with is an infection. But for people who are going in and buying a Chinese food, and they're seeing, you know, all of this PPE being used, it's like, I would say, you know, back in Ireland, there would have been less PPE used in you know, accidents and emergency wards than there was in this Chinese restaurant. However, so clearly it's going to affect your immune system. Do you understand why? Because you just can't sustain, if you're under stress for long periods of time, you just can't sustain it. We're not designed for that. It should only be for short-term fight or flight situations. And then after you run away from the threat, you recover, you think, whew, gosh, that was close. And you learn from it so you don't get back into that situation again. And then you move on to the next thing that's happening in your life. Whereas when you're constantly under tension, your immune system is affected. And I just wanted to highlight that your immune system primarily consists of your skin, your lungs, your digestive system, which of course is not getting the blood flow that it requires when you're under stress, and then your blood. So if you can keep those 4 or 5 things healthy, your immunity will be fine, and you won't have to worry too much. Well, none of you should be worrying about getting infected anyway. Hopefully you've already been infected and you've recovered with very mild symptoms and you're now immune. But we'll not get into that. That's not the purpose of today's chat. The nerve system, of course, runs the whole show. So what I mean by the nerve system is the brain, the spinal cord, and all of the nerves that branch off the spinal cord. It's controlling everything. So when you're in that state, or just before you get into that state of fight or flight, you mightn't be aware of this. This is a wee bit strange, but even before you see the saber-toothed tiger, even before you actually visually see the saber-toothed tiger, your brain knows that there's an imminent threat there, and there's hormones released into your body, primarily adrenaline, that makes you ready so that when you do see the saber-toothed tiger, you can take off like a bat out of hell. So you're ready, which is pretty clever when you think about it, isn't it? Like, this is happening. I can't do it fast enough. Faster than that. There's a threat, you see, and you run. I mean, it's a great, great system, really. And that's why there's, what is it, 7 billion of us living on this small rock at the moment. Okay, so the brain requires 3 things in order to regulate your health. 3 things. This is the way they do it in Germany and Austria, as you all know. Oxygen, glucose, and then information. And the biggest part of that information is movement. So sitting at the laptop at home in an unideal, I mean, it's not ideal at work anyway. We all admit that, right? We do our best to get ergonomic workstations, and we have little cushions to sit underneath our backsides, and we've got these little D-shaped things to put on our low back, and we've got little footrests, and then we rest our hand on our wrist in a straight line so that, you know, the mouse is, you know, we try all of this, but it's still basically we're not moving. That's the biggest challenge. We are not moving. So movement is more than 50% of the information that your brain requires in order to remain healthy. And that's why caveman or cavewoman didn't sit. You know, they sat down to poop. sat down to eat, maybe. Maybe they sat around a fire, you know, but they didn't sit for, what are you guys sitting for? 8 or 9 hours a day. Like, when you think about it, that's a big chunk of your life. And it's completely different to what you were doing 200, 300 years ago. What happens if your spine doesn't move properly? You can pick anyone you like, Wallace and Daisy, you know, doesn't matter. I mean, they'll all affect you, but just pick one that resonates with you. What happens if your spine doesn't move properly? You may feel stiff, your posture may change, you may feel unwell. I mean, they're very, again, sitting on the fence type things. But your health may suffer and deteriorate. Like, when would you do something about that? My health may suffer and deteriorate if I don't move properly. When am I going to do something about that? When I get sick? Or could that be too late because you're already sitting for 8 or 9 hours a day? So hopefully you're going to do it now in about 3 or 4 minutes. In about 4 minutes, you're going to be doing something about it, hopefully. Any questions about any of that so far? Does it make sense? I mean, it should, hopefully it makes sense. It should just be like basic stuff. This is what we should have been taught when we were doing science at school. So if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. If I said to you, I hope Jessica said this to you, I'm sure she did, that you need to get up, it would be a great idea if you stood up. Getting up from sitting every 20 to 30 minutes for just 1 minute will change your long-term health.
Yeah, she did say that to us.
Yeah, I'm sure she did. So if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So I'm sure you're all the same, you know, like when you get involved or when you get stuck into a project, you're basically just at the computer until you get to the end of that project or until your body says, this is hurting. Would that be fair? So just create a little timer. You know, I've got these little, they're very high-tech things, little sand sort of, you know, hourglass timers. And when the sand runs out from the top, it means you got to do something, and then you turn it over, and when the sand then it runs out again, you got to do something again. I mean, it's amazing. You could have one of these things, which will sort of provoke you to move, because this gives you a little buzzer thing, you know. It's very gentle, you know. It sort of says it might be time to move now. It doesn't sort of say get up. It just says it might be time to move. I like I said at the beginning, I like instructions, clear instructions. Connell, get up and move your ass, or Connell, get up and move your spine, or Connell, get up, you know. So I like all of that. So you're going to have to get up. So I'd request now, if you can, to get up. Please. Please, please. And I hope you can see this. I'm sure, again, Jess went through this with you, but these we call the YWLTs. I'm going to do it from the side to begin with so you can see where my ear and my shoulder is, right? Because what we don't want is this. That's what you're doing when you're at the computer. What we do want is this. So the double chin, it's going to be in this summer. It's going to be in with the mini skirt, right? Double chin, go for it. It's really good. So bring your arms up, thumbs pointing behind you, and just squeeze your shoulder blades. So squeeze your shoulder blades together until it hurts. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Once it hurts, stop. And when I say hurt, we're talking about a mild discomfort, right? I'm not expecting you to start sweating or blood to be coming out of your eyes or anything, right? So once you feel that discomfort, just stop. So that's the end of Y. W is going to look like this. So that's where you're bringing your elbows, you're really opening up your chest and you're bringing your elbows back. Again, the idea is to squeeze your shoulder blades until you feel some discomfort. T, I promise you I do this every time I get out of my car. I do a T. It doesn't matter where I am. I don't mind. I'm open to public scrutiny. So this is a T. So palms up, facing the ceiling, just so you can appreciate really, like, you know, if you can get both thumbs to touch, it would be great. And then L. L, not so good for, not as effective for me, but a lot of ladies mention it that it's very good for them. So your elbows are going to be by your side, your palms are up again, and you're bringing your arms back as if you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. Now those 4 YWLTs, they'll take you less than 1 minute to do. And you could do that, let's say, if you look at the, the clock, you could do that on the hour, and it'll benefit you to stand up to do that exercise. And then on the half hour, so when the big hand gets to 6, then you could do the next set of exercises, which could be the neck rotations, which again, I'm sure Jessica has gone through with you guys, you ladies, how to do this. Okay. So do you want me to go through the neck exercises? Yep. Okay. So what you don't see there in that picture is that the palms are actually like this, but they're relaxed. So you're turning your palms. You're turning your palms out and letting your shoulders relax. Okay? And then again, in that side posture, you want your ear and your shoulder to be more aligned. So you're not out there, you're back here. And then you just simply rotate your head and neck. Let's go to your right, first of all. Rotate your head and neck to your right as far as you can. And try and measure it with where your nose is in relation to your shoulder, so that you got a sort of a measurement or a scale. And then come back to neutral, and then do exactly the same. Look over your left shoulder as far as you can, and figure out if the left rotation and the right rotation are equal, because they're supposed to be equal. Are they not equal, Wallace? Okay, so that's fine. Just keep a note of that. Then the second one is the sideways bending. So that's where you're going to hold on the diagram. It says pull the left arm down. You don't need to pull the left arm down. Just hold on to the forearm. And then tilt your head away from the arm that you're holding on to. And you should feel a really strong stretch going down the left-hand side of your neck. Like it should feel fabulous. You know, relief almost, even though it's hurting a little bit. Then stop, come back to neutral, and do exactly the same on the other side. And again, measure if it feels the same on both sides, because it's supposed to be equal. And then come back to neutral. From the, you guys stay looking at this way, but I'm going to look this way again. This one, in the neutral position, this is perhaps the most difficult one to do. In the neutral position, tilt your head back with maintaining the double chin. Now, just as I did that, there was a series of clicks and cracks and pops coming out of my neck. And I haven't been sitting at the computer much this morning. So I can only imagine you guys, there must be clicks, cracks, pops. Probably there's animals outside stopping, listening. What was that noise? Right? So that's the extension. And then neck flexion is the opposite. But again, try and maintain the double chin. And you're just bringing your chin down. Okay? And back to neutral. Now, those exercises will take longer to do than the YWLTs, the first one we just did. The YWLTs are my favorite exercises. They're the ones that, you know, whenever I'm stressed and I'm feeling stressed, that's what I do to help me feel better and to function better. And then the last group of these exercises are the lumbar spine. We're not going to have to spend too long doing this, but the most beneficial one is the spinal lateral flexion, number 7 there. So all you're doing, neutral position again, and you're just reaching down to see, can you reach the outside of your right knee, or if you're going to the right, yeah, to your right knee. And there might be a little click or a pop as well there. That's okay. Gosh, Wallace, you're doing great there. You've gone off the chart in that one. Right. And then back to neutral, and see if it's the same going the other way. And seeing if you can get down as far down the side of your leg to your knee. Because you know what I'm going to say. You should be able to, it should be equal. Okay? For me, that's the best. Those are the best exercises that I do. But they're just for movement. The last exercise, which is more for stability, is called the founder. And I'm sure Jess went through the founder with you. Yeah? So the founder, you're gonna laugh at this one. So just watch for a moment. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. So the first thing is to stick your backside as much as Kim Kardashian can stick her backside this way. So it's going to be like this. You got that? Put your hands on your thighs, and that'll create a little bit of a bend in your knees. Just a little bit of a bend. And then it's as if you're trying to bring your breastbone, your sternum, up so that it's facing straight ahead. That's going to create a massive bend in your low back. You feel it? Wallace, you need to get your sternum a little higher. Yeah, and now stick your backside out further. Yeah. Okay. And then, in that position, bring your arms back so that the weight of your arms tips your toes off the floor, and your weight is then on your heels. And hold that position. And once it hurts, stop. And if you're doing it correctly, you'll feel it not just in the small of your back, but you'll feel it in your thighs. You'll feel it on the front of your thighs. And when you get to do the whole of the founder, which I've given you the link for on the next slide, when you get to do the whole of the founder, when you get to this stage of it, when you get to that stage, it's going to be one of the best hamstring stretches you've ever done. And that's going to help really balance your low back and your pelvis. And for ladies, you know, like, just so as you know, we see like the demographic in our practice, it's more than 60% female. So, you know, ladies tend to look after their health more. They tend to be looking after their household more. It's families that we see coming in, and it's usually the mum that brings in the children, you know, for the chiropractic care. You'd think you get the odd anomaly, but primarily it's the mum who brings the children in, or the mum comes in. All right, and then the last slide is the founder. So you just click on that link. The guy, he's got a really nice accent. I think it's from California, and he talks you through it really, really well. And it takes about 2 minutes or so. I just thought I'd share the link with you, and then you can, you know, whack away at it yourselves. And if you need any help with anything, call me. Just use Ruth as a reference, you know. Hi, Connell, we're from the Royal Albert Hall. Ruth said it was okay to give you a call or send me an email, and I'll respond. I'm pretty good. Like I said, when people instruct me, I'm really good at that. If they leave it up to me to do it myself, I'll be all week getting back to you. But if you get in touch with me and just be direct, it's fine. That's the best way for me to operate. Any questions from anybody about anything?
Guys, you can unmute because there's only a small amount of us. So if you all want to unmute, then you can ask away.
Yeah.
Would you, I guess I have a question. I've never been to a chiropractor. Would you say it's something people should do? Should I go?
I think everybody should do it, Wallace. But you know, then again, I'm a chiropractor.
Yeah.
You know, so if you go to see, well, maybe it's not true. I shouldn't compare like this. But if you went to see an orthopedic surgeon, and he said, do you think I should go to see an orthopedic surgeon? Hopefully, they wouldn't say, I think everybody should go and see an orthopedic surgeon. Yeah, I think you should. I think chiropractic is just like, you know, a part of your healthy lifestyle, whether it's eating well, exercising, whatever. You know, it's just makes sense to me. It sits with that whole stress scenario I gave you. What I didn't tell you was when the joints do stiffen up from sitting for too long, and it causes that tension and nerve interference, that actually enhances the stress response. So getting your spine checked, I mean, if it were your elbow, you know, if it were your elbow, you'd want it to be moving normally, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So every joint in your spine, be good to make sure that they're moving normally, because those joints have little nerves that come out and go and supply organs, muscles, everything else. So yeah, again, you know, I don't know what part of London you're in, but if you're not in our part of London, just get in touch. There's the General Chiropractic Council that has the register for chiropractors, and they do it by postcode. But it's always good to have a recommendation. I always, you know, if I go to see somebody, it's usually on a referral or a recommendation from somebody else, you know. So get in touch with us, Jessica or Jackie, who you haven't met yet. But there's 3 of us in Harrow Chiropractic, and we'll do our best to find you somebody. If you want, for example, a female chiropractor who has the same philosophy that we have, then we'll try and find that person for you.
Great,
in your locale, right? Because you don't want to be traipsing up to Harrow, even though it is the best place in the world. You don't want to be traipsing up there all the time.
I second that. It's great.
Daisy, any questions?
No, I haven't got any. I found that very useful though. Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, just as a general rule, you know, like I do a lot of my exercises either before I have the shower in the morning or during the shower. So
during a shower?
During the shower. You know the shower head is up here?
Yeah.
The neck extension one?
Mm.
I just like getting a lot of bang for my buck, you know, so I'm getting a facial, you know, I'm washing my face, and at the same time, I'm restoring my neck movement. You know, it sort of works for me. And it only takes about, what, 10 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much water I'm wasting in that 10 seconds, but it's only 10 seconds. You know, so when you start the day like that, like, did you notice after you did the exercises, did you feel any more alert?
Well, yeah, we do the VWT one in our stretches every morning, and I find that super useful. And I always feel much better after doing stretches in the morning.
Yeah.
So We do. I think there's a lot of it that links to what we do already.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it
Then
makes
it's
sense.
just about doing it more often, isn't it?
Mhm.
You know, like when you think about all of the people who go on yoga retreats and you know they're doing yoga 2 or 3 times a day for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, then they come back and they don't do the yoga again. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, you know.
Mhm.
Do the yoga every day, or do the exercises several times every day. Anything else? Ruth, do you got any questions?
No, I'm good. Susan, Amy, Anne, or Kasha, do you have anything? No?
But thank you very much.
No.
Are there
No,
more people? I didn't know.
Very much.
Yeah, if you click the blue arrow, there's a couple more people
Blue arrow.
at the top or on your little bar.
Ah, sorry, I didn't realize. Were you there all along?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, are you having a glass of champagne, Anne? Good on you.
Yeah, I usually am. That's kind of how I feel based on my needs for stretching.
That's the way you rock. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, listen, if there's anything I can do, like I said, just get in touch. Treat us like friends, you know, or friends of a friend, and we'll do all we can for you.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so
Brilliant.
much.
Thanks so much, Connell.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're very welcome. You have all of this information, Ruth. If you need anything else, just contact me.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you so much. Also, everyone, this has been recorded, so I'll put it on backstage and we can access it there as well.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
All right.
bye.
Thanks so much, Connell.
Bye.
Well done.
It was so good. Yeah, thanks, Connell. Yeah, it's good, wasn't it?
Amazing.
I'm going to stop.